How are you? I feel that it would be a little unkind to present tonight's strange tale without just a word of friendly warning. Our story deals with the ancient belief in evil spirits that haunt the living. Due to the gory nature of this story, I would advise this audio oddity be censored from the ears of small children and the cognitively challenged. Such a horrible story that you might even experience a distressing loss of bladder or bowel control. Now that you're prepared, let's commence the audio atrocity I call
Varney the Vampire, or the Feast of Blood.
Written by Thomas Peckett Prest or James Malcolm Rymer. Narrated by Edward E. French. Chapter 14. Henry's agreement with Sir Francis Varney. The sudden arrival at the hall. Flora's alarm. On the tray, which the servant brought into the room, were refreshments of different kinds, including wine. And after waving his hand for the domestic to retire, Sir Francis Varney said, "You will be better, Mr. Bannerworth, for a glass of wine after your walk. And you too, sir. I'm ashamed to say I have quite forgotten your name." "Marchdale." "Mr. Marchdale. Aye, Marchdale. Pray, sir, help yourself." "You take nothing yourself?" said Henry. "I am under a strict regimen," replied Varney. "The simplest diet alone does for me, and I have accustomed myself to long abstinence." "He will not eat or drink," muttered Henry abstractedly. "Will you sell me the hall?" said Sir Francis Varney. Henry looked at his face again, from which he had only momentarily withdrawn his eyes, and he was then more struck than ever with the resemblance between him and the portrait on the panel of what had been Flora's chamber. What made that resemblance, too, one about which there could scarcely be two opinions, was the mark of a cicatrix of a wound in the forehead, which the painter had slightly indented in the portrait, but which was more plainly visible on the forehead of Sir Francis Varney. Now that Henry observed this distinctive mark, which he had not done before, he could feel no doubt, and a sickening sensation came over him at the thought that he was actually now in the presence of one of those terrible creatures, vampires. "You do not drink," said Varney. "Most young men are not so modest with a decanter of unimpeachable wine before them. I pray you, help yourself." "I cannot." Henry rose as he spoke, and turning to Marchdale, he said, in addition, "Will you come away?" "If you please," said Marchdale, rising. "But you have not, my dear sir," said Varney, "given me yet any answer about the hall." "I cannot yet," answered Henry. "I will think. My present impression is to let you have it, on whatever terms you may yourself propose, always provided you consent to one of mine." "Name it." "That you never show yourself in my family." "How very unkind. I understand you have a charming sister, young, beautiful, and accomplished. Shall I confess now that I had hopes of making myself agreeable to her?" "You make yourself agreeable to her? The sight of you would blast her forever and drive her to madness." "Am I so hideous?" "No. But you are—" "What am I?" "Hush, Henry, hush!" cried Marchdale. "Remember, you are in this gentleman's house." True. Why does he tempt me to say these dreadful things? I do not want to say them." "Come away, then. Come away at once. Sir Francis Varney, my friend Mr. Bannerworth, will think over your offer and let you know. I think you may consider it that your wish to become the purchaser of the hall will be complied with." "I wish to have it," said Varney, "and I can only say that if I am master of it, I shall be very happy to see any of the family on a visit at any time." "A visit?" said Henry, with a shudder. "A visit to the tomb were far more desirable. Farewell, sir." "Adieu," said Sir Francis Varney, and he made one of the most elegant bows in the world, while there came over his face a peculiarity of expression that was strange, if not painful, to contemplate. In another minute, Henry and Marchdale were clear of the house, and with feelings of bewilderment and horror, which beggar all description, poor Henry allowed himself to be led by the arm by Marchdale to some distance, without uttering a word. When he did speak, he said, "Marchdale, it would be a charity of someone to kill me."
To kill you?
"Yes, for I am certain otherwise that I must go mad." "Nay, nay, rouse yourself. This man, Varney, is a vampire." "Hush, hush, I tell you, Marchdale," cried Henry in a wild, excited manner. "He is a vampire. He is the dreadful being who visited Flora at the still hour of midnight and drained the lifeblood from her veins. He is a vampire. There are such things. I cannot doubt now. Oh, God! I wish that your lightnings would blast me, as here I stand forever into annihilation, for I am going mad to be compelled to feel that such horrors can really have existence."
Henry, Henry!
"Nay, talk not to me. What can I do? Shall I kill him? Is it not a sacred duty to destroy such a thing? Oh, horror! Horror! He must be killed, destroyed, burnt, and the very dust to which he is consumed must be scattered to the winds of heaven. It would be a deed well done, Marchdale."
Hush! These words are dangerous.
"I care not. What if they were overheard now by unfriendly ears? What might not be the uncomfortable results? I pray you be more cautious with what you say of this strange man." "I must destroy him."
And wherefore?
"Can you ask? Is he not a vampire?"
Yes.
But reflect, Henry, for a moment upon the length to which you might carry out so dangerous an argument. It is said that vampires are made by vampires sucking the blood of those who, but for that circumstance, would have died and gone to decay in the tomb along with ordinary mortals. But that being so attacked during life by a vampire, they themselves, after death, become such. Well, what is that to me? Have you forgotten Flora? A cry of despair came from poor Henry's lips, and in a moment he seemed completely, mentally and physically, prostrated. "God of heaven," he moaned, "I had forgotten her." "I thought you had." "Oh, if the sacrifice of my own life would suffice to put an end to all this accumulating horror, how gladly I would lay it down. In any way. No mode of death should appall me, no amount of pain make me shrink. I could smile then upon the destroyer and say, 'Welcome, welcome, most welcome.' Rather, Henry, seek to live for those whom you love than die for them. Your death would leave them desolate. In life you may ward off many a blow of fate from them. I may endeavor to do so. Consider that Flora may be wholly dependent upon such kindness as you may be able to bestow upon her. Charles clings to her. You do not doubt him?" "My dear friend Henry Bannerworth, although I am not an old man, yet I am so much older than you that I have seen a great deal of the world, and am, perhaps, far better able to come to accurate judgments with regard to individuals. No doubt. And yet—"
"Nay, hear me out. Such judgments, founded upon experience,
when uttered, have all the character of prophecy about them.
I therefore now prophesy to you that Charles Holland will yet be so stung with horror at the circumstance of a vampire visiting Flora that he will never make her his wife."
"Marchdale, I differ from you most completely," said Henry. "I know that Charles Holland is the very soul of honor. I cannot argue the matter with you. It has not become a thing of fact. I have only sincerely to hope that I am wrong." "You are, you may depend, entirely wrong. I cannot be deceived in Charles." From you such words produce no effect but one of regret that you should so much err in your estimate of anyone. From anyone but yourself they would have produced in me a feeling of anger I might have found it difficult to smother. "It has often been my misfortune through life," said Marchdale sadly, "to give the greatest offense where I feel the truest friendship, because it is in such quarters that I am always tempted to speak too freely." "Nay, no offense," said Henry.
I am distracted and scarcely know what to say. Marchdale, I know you are my sincere friend, but as I tell you, I am nearly mad.
My dear Henry, be calmer. Consider upon what is to be said concerning this interview at home. Aye, that is a consideration. I should not think it advisable to mention the disagreeable fact that in your neighbor you think you have found out the nocturnal disturber of your family. No, I would say nothing of it. It is not at all probable that, after what you have said to him, this Sir Francis Varney, or whatever his real name may be, will obtrude himself upon you. If he should, he die. He will, perhaps, consider that such a step would be dangerous to him. It would be fatal, so help me. However, and then I would take especial care that no power of resuscitation should ever enable that man again to walk the earth. They say that the only way of destroying a vampire is to fix him to the earth with a stake, so that he cannot move. And then, of course, decomposition will take its course, as in ordinary cases. Fire would consume him, and be a quicker process, said Henry. But these are fearful reflections, and for the present we will not pursue them. Now to play the hypocrite, and endeavor to look composed and serene to my mother and to Flora while my heart is breaking. The two friends had by this time reached the hall, and, leaving his friend Marchdale, Henry Bannerworth, with feelings of the most unenviable description, slowly made his way to the apartment occupied by his mother and sister. Varney the Vampire, or The Feast of Blood, written by Thomas Becket Prest or James Malcolm Rymer, is copyright 2022 by Edward E. French. All rights reserved. A copyright exists on all recordings issued by Edward E. French. Contact email edwardfrench06@hotmail.com for inquiries. That's Edward French, one word, 06 @hotmail.com. Good night.